is going to, oh yes. Can you see the slide?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
You can,
Mulch,
right?
not milk with
Yes.
young. Yes, ma'am.
So today is the topic of my talk is the project that is closest to Bijom's heart. It's called Mulch, Not Milch with Dangho, the Bijom story. Bijom was they just mentioned it's an accidental journey for me. I am actually a lawyer from Chennai. I now, this project is in Uttar Pradesh, in Western Uttar Pradesh. So I'm very far from where I grew up. And I'm also very far from the profession I trained to be in. I got into this accidentally because I've been working with animals for a long time. And agriculture happened accidentally with a bunch of cows and horses that we rescued. And the journey has been incredible for the last 7 years. There's so much learning, and there is so much that we've been able to do. What do you call that? Sorry. Yeah. So I'll straight dive into the first slide because I don't even have too much time. How do I go to the next slide? So this is our animal sanctuary. I'm going to be very quick. This is what is the heart of our farm. We have innumerable animals on our farm, whether it is horses and geese and ducks and cats and dogs. They make up for the heart of our farm, and this is their forever home. They are rescued, and they come here to us, and they lived their whole lives with us. They are not what do you call that, people who are, they're not needy, and people who are dependent on us. They actually run the farm. They're the heart of the farm. So you can see the number of animals here. They're all living in free range, happy, hopefully, and they get a lot of love and affection and care, and they have names, they have personalities. So at the heart of it all is our cattle preservation center. The Cattle Preservation Center started with 2 cows, which we got when we started the farm in 2014. And at that point, I didn't even know there was something called Desi and indigenous cows and other cows, and Bos Indicus and Bos Taurus, and none of these terminologies. And I discovered indigenous cattle, and it's been fantastic because these indigenous cattle are they come from various parts of India, and now we are pure breeding them within the farm. We have these are our cow sheds. This is the Vechur cow with her baby, and this is our Malnad Gidda cows. And I'll tell you these are the breeds that we have on the farm today. We have a Gaushala and a Nandishala. What is unusual is our farm is actually for me, my favorite part of cattle rearing are the bulls more than the cows. I love the bulls, and in my opinion, they are hugely neglected. I don't think people pay enough attention to bulls at all. So we have a separate Nandishala and a Gaushala. All the male cattle who are born on our farm are celebrated. We have a dawat when we have a male birth on the farm, because amongst cows, just like amongst human beings, when the girl children are not wanted, like that amongst cattle, it's the male that suffer. So we not only pure breed, we are also very careful to celebrate the male, because see, this is Gandhar. He's a male Gir Sand, and like that we have males from all the breeds here. We have the Gir Sahiwal, Tharparkar, Red Sindhi, Kankrej, Rati, Kangayam, Haryani, Vechur, Malnad Gidda, and the Murrah buffalo. So this is what makes up for our cattle preservation center, and this center, this is what runs our farm. It's the very heart of our farm. And over a period, we have learned how to look after them. We have learned their care. By trial and error, we have learned Gaushala management, which is a very huge core of our work. Our cattle are extremely healthy, very well kept, and we take pride in the way we look after them. Unfortunately, most Gaushalas across the country don't pay attention to this factor. So yes, we have tons of Gaushalas, but they are very heavily mismanaged. So in fact, it has become a part of our whole system on the farm to create a system, create systems, share that work so that other Gaushalas can be helped to be managed better. We have each animal has a cattle medical record. They have names, they have photographs. It's like their own Aadhaar card, and they have personalities. They have. We are very careful about how we house them, how we feed them, what do we feed them, 24/7 availability of water, maintenance of strict records of medical and otherwise, so, staff management. The staff management includes sensitization, where you have to sensitize your staff towards compassion, techniques of management. Then the routine is very has to be very good. Cattle love routine. So from morning to evening, we have a very strict routine management of our cattle sheds. We have treatment protocols for our sick animals. It begins with Desi treatment protocols, and in cases where we cannot just use Desi methods, then we shift to other methods of treatment, which includes allopathy or homeopathy or even Ayurveda. Ethics of keeping and working, being and working with animals is very important. So the constant stress in the farm is about compassion and caring for animals, their happiness, their comfort. Seeing their own life through our eyes and seeing if how they feel, do they feel because happiness is every being's right. So our main purpose on the farm is to ensure they are comfortable. Milk ethics. I'll come to this, a huge part at Bijom. As we started working with the cows, we realized the milk politics, so to speak. And so we created new projects to deal with it at our own level. And eventually, every Gaushala has to deal with dung management. Gaushalas have huge amounts of dung lying there, unused, even just washed away. And I think this also contributes to a lot of environmentally unfriendly, unsustainable work, because we just have piles of dung releasing methane. It's not going to the right place. Sometimes the sheds are not even cleaned, and the whole sheds are full of cow dung, and the cattle is standing in them. So dung management is a very crucial aspect of Gaushala management. We have about 1,500 kilos of dung that we produce in a day. For us, that is wealth. That's raw material, and that for us was potential. I'm going to tell you a very small story. This is a story of a Tharparkar baby called Purnima. Her mother Bhadra is with us. This is Bhadra. Bhadra is a beautiful Tharparkar cow. For those who don't know, Tharparkar itself indicates she's a desert cow. She's a camel amongst cows, because she can cross the desert, giving you milk even with less water. She's a wonderful, sturdy Indian cow. She had a daughter called Purnima. This was much earlier. This was 7 years ago. The first thing, when I started looking after cows, I was first told by the cow herd that "Hamare liye 3 than hai, usko 1 than hai." I could never understand this logic. I love milk. I think milk is delicious, but it belongs to the calf. You see, so I used to worry that the calf is not getting enough milk. So when I used to ask the cow herd, he used to tell me, at that time I didn't know enough, and he used to tell me, no, this is the calf will get sick if it drinks any more. It'll have loose motions. So it never sat with me well, and I kept thinking there has to be something wrong. What happens in the wild? Who's monitoring 1 ton and 3 tons? The mother, in every species, the mother knows how to parent. Why are we interfering with this cycle? So after speaking to many experts and animal rights people and people I respect, I decided to break tradition as far as they were concerned and said, no, this baby is going to be free and she's going to drink as much as she wants. So they were aghast. They said, you're going to kill the baby, she's going to die. And frankly, at that point, 7 years ago, I was worried too. But I said, no, it doesn't logically sit with me, so I'm going to do it. And unbelievably, this calf not just grew well, she grew so strong because she got all the colostrum from her mother. She got all the affection. She was not tied away from her mother. Her mother was not pining for her. She could get all the tender love and care she needed from her mother. And her mother got the opportunity to parent. Because and we realized Purnima, her name is Purnima, Purnima would go back again and again to Bhadra to drink milk. And after the third time, Bhadra would give her a gentle kick and saying, run off now, I can't give you more milk. So she could parent. She was telling her child enough. The mother knew how much the child should be drinking. And nothing happened to Purnima. She just slept a lot because she had lots of milk and she was comatose with great milk. Excess milk, So this is Purnima here. She's still drinking, you can see. And here Bhadra is allowing a second calf who lost her mother to share the udder. It's a beautiful story for me, because ever since we've been very clear, and my cowherds also, because most of them have just been taught this, there's no application at all of mine. So now on the farm, we're very clear. Calves have to be free. They have to be with their mother. They love to run and play. If they run and play, they digest better. So it's a learning for us. That was a huge learning. The second story, this is Bhadra and Purnima again. I had so many photographs of this at that point. Second story that I want to tell you all is about Jiva. Jiva, I would, when I was going towards the farm every day, I would see a bull standing in the road, looking down towards the ground. And he was in the same position for hours and hours. And it would bother me. And I used to think there's something wrong. Why is this bull not walking? So at the end of the day, I was very sure there's something wrong. So we stopped, and Ravi, who's works, we work alongside on the farm, he said, kuch to problem hai. So we decided to, and we saw the pate was, full expanded. So I called a friend of mine who helped me, and he sent a vehicle, and he's an expert on ruminectomy. So when he took the bull there, we also, Holika Foundation also helped us. And when we took the bull there and we took out, they did a ruminectomy, this is what they found inside that sand: 160 kilos of kachra. This happened about 5-6 years ago. It was ridiculous, and it was that is when it was an eye opener for me of what stray cattle go through in our country. They go straight, hit all the rubbish dumps, and whether it's cows or bulls. And tragically, all local dairies release their cattle the whole day, cows the whole day, to graze outside, and they're not grazing on great grass and excellent fodder. They are grazing on waste, because that's all they get, especially in urban cities where you have these small dairies all over the place. And this is what is inside all those cows, all those bulls, and this is why they die eventually. It's crazy. So this is what we got. This is the ruminectomy being done. You can actually see the kachra being taken out. Not only was there kachra, these are the metal parts that were found in the stomach of the cow. There were so many metal parts, and unfortunately, not cow, the sand. Unfortunately, Jiva did not make it. And although we tried, he was way too far gone. And this was another way. These were all learnings for me, and I was shocked at the condition of cattle in our country and how we are, doing this. This was a Jersey cow that decided to make our farm her home. She would barge into the gate, broke our gates twice, broke our biogas once, because she wanted to get in. We sent her out 4 times thinking she's somebody else's cow. But after the 5th time, I said, just bring her in and put her in our shed. She wants to be here. And ever since, she's remained with us. She's a very ill-tempered and cantankerous person, but she just chose her house. And when I actually went back to find out about Jersey cows, because at that point I didn't know much at all, I realized that they are not at all to blame. They don't even belong here. She's continuously got mastitis. She's always got health problems, and we are always looking at her medical bills are much more than all our indigenous cows. Tragically, with the greed of milk, we've brought in a lot of this what do you call it? The Jersey and Holstein Friesian cattle from everywhere, and they have crossed with all our desi cattle in the thing, and they are also suffering because they don't belong here. They are not equipped with all those beautiful characteristics our indigenous cows have to deal with heat and pests and flies, and they are very vulnerable. They are perennially falling sick. In fact, they are very hard to maintain. They are not as fertile. They have so many problems. So she became our lesson for us as to why it's not fair on her or on anyone else to bring these beautiful cattle in. They are as beautiful. They are desi to some other land. There is nothing wrong with them. They don't belong here. That's it. So it was, but we have two, there's Jersey cows who we completely adore. One is called Janani, and I haven't put her photo, but this is the other one. And so they stay on our farm, they live out their lives. They're very happy. They just want to be in peace. So I just wanted to share the story of the Jersey cow. So, and then we started getting cattle rescue calls. We don't have an ambulance or anything, but we have a lovely paravet team and a veterinary doctor who is on call 24/7. The paravet team is with us all the time, and we have other people who we've trained to help. So we do take I can never refuse a call. So we do take calls from stray cattle, and this is what we find: so many stray cattle on the roads because dairies churn out male cattle which they don't want and throw them out on the road, and this is what they grow to: eating plastic, getting into accidents, being burnt with acid, having maggot wounds on their foot. It's a very sad, horns breaking. So we get calls, almost 10-15 calls a day, and whatever we can do, we are doing. But when I saw all these problems that we have, I realized that the first thing that we must not do at Bijom is we must never do dairy, because the root cause of all these problems was dairy. It was dairy that was churning out these innumerable male calves that didn't have a place there. Barren cows who are not fertile are thrown on the road, and eventually they're picked up for slaughter, or the male calves, poor things, they're just thrown out in the middle of the road one fine morning. They're so small, they bhatko on the road and they die. They're hit by a vehicle. So the whole cause of all this was dairy. And so at Bijom, we took a very conscious effort not to do dairy. This is a small video of us treating a sand who had a maggot foot with maggots. We have to go there 2-3 times 4 times, and take the help of the locals to watch the sand. People are amazing around us. People do want to help, so we take their help. In fact, they are our informers too. So with the help of the community, we help these animals as much as we can. But unfortunately, it's not enough, So therefore, the debate became dung versus milk, which is more sustainable for us. And this is what I discovered. With dung, it's 365 days, 24/7. It has a great shelf life. Animals will be fed better because people want more dung if you do anything with dung. All cattle will be cared for. Whether they are barren, whether they are male, whether they are female, it doesn't matter. Sustainability for Gaushalas. If you work with dung, it's great because the dung is 24/7. It's coming all the time, whether you want it or not. And you can make so many environmentally friendly products with it. No raw material input. The raw material is falling every day in your Gaushala, whether you like it or not. It's a great financially sustainable business because there is no weather for it. There is no time for it. It's happening all the time. It's great. Milk, there's a 9-month pregnancy, continuous pregnancies. Milk only during lactation period and only from a fertile cow. Perishable products. It's a perishable issue. Return on investment issues. There are so many overhead expenses. When the cow is pregnant for 9 months, you have to pay for all its expenses. Only female fertile cows in demand. Calf is deprived of milk. Male calf is abandoned or slaughtered. Poor management of dung. So it's an environmentally unsustainable business as far as we could see it. Therefore, we did Dung Ho. We started a project 7 years ago, almost as soon as the farm started, because all these revelations came to me at that point, and I said, no, I will not do dung. I'm not going to do dairy. I'm going to work with dung. And we're going to make a business out of dung. I didn't know then how it's going to happen, but that's the journey we started. And today, this is what we make. We make liquid fertilizers, we make other solid fertilizers, we make various products from cow dung, we make special packs. like the wheatgrass kit, dishwash kit, microgreens kit, puja kit. We also sell khad as it is. So for us, the tagline, mulch, not milch. No milch became our tagline. We don't do dairy at all on our farm. Our cattle are only bred for their own preservation, not for dairy. Therefore, they are bred very carefully. We give them a lot of resting periods between pregnancies. They're given lots of calcium, enriched foods. So they are not baby producing machines, where that's how dairies treat cows. One pregnancy after the other without a break. Even amongst humans, we know that we need to give a break to a mother between pregnancies. But the cow doesn't even have that advantage. And after 4 pregnancies, she's gone. Then she's thrown out on the road. So that is therefore we started this. You can see the number of products we are making here. We use the dung logs for our own cooking. We also sell it for hamans or bonfires or whatever people want, a lori, any function. We make diyas, it's scented wax in gobar. We make seed balls. In fact, I just did a seed ball workshop where we make seed balls with cow dung, and we are teaching people how to grow trees using seed balls. It's a wonderful project, especially for children. And we make a lot of pest repellents and fertilizers. We also make a puja box during festive times saying celebrate sustainably. So many messages using the Dung project, so many messages for sustainability, promoting a different culture, a different, more environmentally sustainable culture. And it is possible because of our cattle, and it is for them. So that is why we make a dhoop, we make a machar product which drives away mosquitoes beautifully. We make small diyas, and this is how we make our dung pots. I put a small video. I don't know how much time I have, and I'm kind of pushing in as much, and our pots come out really well. You can see the quality of our pots. This brings me so much of learning, and so many farmers are learning from us how to make these pots. And I think it's a great parallel economy. And this is how we make our dung logs. Sorry. This is not playing. So for us, dung became our, not just our resource, our treasure. We use it for everything. Our farm cannot run without this dung. And therefore, our cattle are not dependent on us. We are dependent on our cattle. They run our whole farm. We use the dung not only to make all these products. This is a pond being made on the farm. It is fully done with cow dung and clay and lime plaster. We are using Jivamrit for all our agricultural practices. We are, all our seed saving is done. You making these pots by hand using cow dung. You can see how beautiful it is. It preserves all our seed. We are creating a seed bank where all our grains are preserved using this. And it's wonderful that we are able to use. And then our whole structures on the farm. This is our farmers market, which we conduct every Saturday. And even the lepai for that is done with cow dung. So it is an invaluable resource for us. We have Sorry, I skipped a slide. This is our Chabutra, where we hold our farmers markets. You can see we have a shop there, we have people coming, and the whole thing is the handmade structures using local materials and cow dung, of course. And all our operations, all our cooking, everything is done using biogas. So that for that also we need cow dung every single day. Without cow dung, we cannot run it. The idea of sustainability on our farm became a dream to be off the grid. So off the grid meant we make our own fertilizers, we make our own pest repellents, we make our own gas, we save our own seeds. And as you can see, for every single operation, we needed cow dung. And so we needed the cattle. So that is the beauty of sustainability for us. Then when we started making these logs, people got very interested, and IIT Delhi came to us. The students came to us with a project from their Enactus group, where they said we would like to test these logs. We were delighted because so far when people would ask us, well, how do these logs compare with wooden logs, we didn't have much of an answer. So we were happy that there was a scientific community that was interested in these logs. So they did some cremation with unclaimed bodies and worked with administration, the district administration, and found that the cow dung logs are far more effective rather than wood. Fantastic. How many trees are we going to cut to cremate? Even if you did electric cremation, it is unsustainable because you're using a carbon footprint. So here we had a zero carbon footprint, best out of waste model. And if you ask me, is it effective? You know, people take a long time to accept these things. So we have to work very hard. That is why such communities like where we are sitting now, your kind of community is important to spread the message, make more people, make governments aware that this should become mandatory, allow people to buy from people like us who are trying to make this and sell it. I think we have to do the networking, which is there. But the idea is perfect. It is something that should become mandatory, in my opinion. All Goshalas should have these machines, or everyone should be making these logs and pots. Goshalas also become sustainable, and we'll also be doing something extremely environment friendly. Then the question came up saying, oh, you have so many bulls. What are you going to do with them? Yes, bulls are very strong animals with a lot of testosterone. They need work. Bulls are not curios. You cannot keep them tied up to a shed and feed them 3 meals. It's not going to work. So, but how do we work them in a humane, compassionate, and effective way? So we put up a bull power plant at Bijong. This plant runs, it can water the fields. There is a thresher, there is a fodder cutter, and so this is how we operate it. So the fields are watered by this is Ram and Lakhan. So this is Ram and Lakhan, who you saw in the video. They help us with our fields, and we have pairs. We've made pairs of all the bulls. We have a bull training school within the farm where all bulls are trained in humane and in a very good way. In fact, we have our characters just like any other classroom. There is one bull called Rudra. Every time he sees the plow, he lies down. He knows they have come again to make me work. So it's very cute to watch them. They're just like little children playing, when you don't want to go to school. When they see all this, they're like, no, we don't want to go. But it's great for them. They become much healthier. Their muscles are used. And even the hoof care is easier then because the hoofs don't grow when they are worked. So, but we are very clear on how much we work them, how we feed them because they are working, the malish that they get, and the expectations are minimal. We don't work them for too long. So and now we've started making our own plows. We realized that you don't get great plows in the market anymore. So we make our own plows. We are also trying to make our own bullock carts. There is so much possibility with bulls. And why? Because today agriculture is a diesel dependent economy. If everyone is working with diesel, without a tractor you can't plow, and tractors are terrible for the soil. So the way to go is, most of India has small farms. They're small holdings. So ideally, we should go back to plowing as far as possible, integrate the cattle back into agriculture, make them plow, make them work at the chakki, and do it in a humane, happy way. That's how bulls had such a great role in agriculture before, which is completely lost thanks to mechanization in agriculture. So this is our, you can see Ram and Lakhan is here. There are most senior, they were rescued from slaughter from interiors of UP, and they came to us 6 years ago. They are beautiful, very ill-tempered, but once you put the plow for them, they think they're in uniform and they work really well. So, but they're very cute, and this is how they are on the farm. We are able to do all this work using them. So now coming to agriculture. Agriculture is one of the other pillars of our project, because we realize that is where these animals belong. The best way to save them is not put them in goshalas, make them stand there and eat 3 meals a day. The way to save them is to bring them back where they belong. They belong to farmers. They belong to agriculture. Agriculture is most effective using cattle. And we have demonstrated that over 7 years. We grow the most incredible food, diverse food. We make our own pest repellents, which we don't even need anymore. And above all, what this has taught us using cattle is to grow soil. I keep saying we don't grow crops, we grow soil. And for soil building on this planet, I cannot think of a better way to regenerate soil. So we use various principles from various types of agricultural, what can I say, agricultural ideologies. So sometimes we use Palekarji's ZBNF, sometimes we use permaculture, biodynamic, natural farming, no-till farming. We are happy to take in anything that we can adapt into the farm, and that's how this has grown. We have found Jivamrit to be extremely effective for soil building. So it is something we work on all the time. We have grown our soil over 7 years from just virtual ash. The soil had nothing. Today, it is teeming with microbes and earthworms. If it rains us, we can't stand on our own soil. That's how many earthworms come out. And it is only possible because of cow dung. So, which is why it is tragic that we are not seeing how, this is not about putting cattle into goshalas and looking after. It is about putting cattle into fields, into agriculture, into making this all a sustainable practice. So, this is how we make our Jivamrit. They are kept in drums and they're taken into the fields and put into the fields. This is Ganjivamrit being made. Ganjivamrit is actually nothing but Desi DAP. It does the work of DAP. So we should not be using chemicals at all. With zero chemicals, we are growing so much food on the farm. Hardly any pest attacks because of the way we are building soil and restoring the ecology of the soil. We grow everything. We grow a lot of millets. And why millets? Because millets grow in very poor soil. They are great fodder for cattle. So there is a symbiotic cycle on our farm. We grow the grains for us, the grass for the cows, the roots for the soil, and it all keeps getting recycled. The cattle produce dung, we grow back the grains. Therefore, there is no crop burning, there is no crop waste. We grow great clean food. I mean, I cannot begin to tell you the number of advantages of integrating cattle into agriculture. And because of this, we have not just some crops, we have a virtual Kirana Dukan on our farm. We grow everything. We grow millets, we grow paddy, we grow wheat, we grow oil seeds, we grow vegetables, herbs, spices, legumes. So everything we have a virtual Kirana Dukan happening thanks to them. This is our menu board for our Kirana Dukan, and it's beautiful. We are growing so many varieties of all sorts of things. I'm having to rush a bit because I don't want to take too much time, but the whole idea of telling you this was to show you how invaluable. And because we realize that what plastic does to cows, what plastic does to animals and cattle and rubbish dumps, it's a zero plastic zone on the farm. And composting and segregation is part of every lecture of mine, because we have to begin everywhere like this. All our packaging is done with zero plastic. Our Dukan is a zero plastic thing. We prefer to not even package. We prefer to sell local so that maximum least packaging and maximum sale. So these are the kind of mantras we have tried to evolve on the farm, and everything is linked to cow sustainability or cattle sustainability. And more than anything else, I think without community, a project is a waste. This is what our community interactions are. We have compaction workshops, we have Goshala management workshops, we have, urban terrace gardening workshops, we have agriculture workshops, we have snake workshops, everything, so that people come to us, they learn from us. Here people are learning to be kind to a calf or meet animals and interact with them. Otherwise, there is a huge disconnect between people and animals. And I alone or we alone cannot change this world. It has to be done bit by bit. It has to be done with everyone. So we connect with schools, we connect with families, we conduct farmers markets on the farm, we conduct workshops, we conduct brunches, we also cook and serve. So every possible way in which we can connect with community. That is the main purpose of this project. Here we are, this is a compassion project here. This is an interaction with schools, people pledging, children pledging on one of our workshops to save the earth. This is how our farmers market looks on some days. And so we have made this into a charcha in front of the cowshed. This is our cowshed. Everything happens in front of it. We call it Chowk Pe Charcha. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about compassion. Let's talk about segregation. Let's talk about, even if you can't eliminate milk, conscious drinking of milk, conscious dairy. Can we move towards a better platform, that is more compassionate, that is more kind, and these are the various. We are also very involved with farmers groups. All our cow herds, all their views have changed now. They are into, can you believe a cow herd being into a dung farming, talking about it. So when you come to our farm, you can actually see them talk about dung farming. Here we are doing work with we have a rural learning center, we have a self-help group, we have a rural health clinic. And at the heart of all this is our dung ho, because this is how we communicate even to farmers, how they have to go back to plowing, how they can do organic or chemical free natural farming, how they can use cattle. Cattle is our wealth, soil is our wealth, and growing clean food is our purpose. And this kind of messaging, a constant and also teaching farmers how to do this, how to go back to it. We are not doing anything new. We just have to go back, and we have to go back in a good way, taking all the modern considerations into account. So this is what we think about all the time at Bijom. We think about extinction of indigenous cattle. Therefore, we have a cattle preservation center. We think about unethical dairy practices and its consequences. So we have Dung Ho. We analyze government policies and try to see how can we help create better policy papers or frameworks, or work with people who are working with policy. We work with unsegregated waste and stray cattle to show how you can have a zero waste zone with segregated compost, and how that can help cattle. We talk about Jiva everywhere. Jiva meant life, but he died, and he died because of us. And how mechanization in agriculture has had its effects on animal husbandry. It has taken all our beautiful animals, whether it's cows or goats, and beautiful breeds of all these cattle. Even in goats, even in horses, you have wonderful breeds in India. You have Jamnapari, Barbari, Sirohi amongst goats. In horses, you have Malwani, Sindhi, Kathiawadi. All those are missing. They're gone because we have moved to a system of mechanization. So far have we gone that we are losing our wealth. And at the heart of it all, the principles are permaculture. I love permaculture because it's not an old new concept. It is called permaculture today, but it is basically traditional agriculture. Because in traditional agriculture, all these aspects are there. Earth care, people care, and fair share. These are the principles of modern permaculture, but this we've been doing for generations, and we just have to go back to this. So at Bijom today, what we have is compassion. These are our pillars: compassion, integration, sustainability, and holistic farming. These have been our lessons, these have been our learnings, and we constantly are trying to live up to it, reinvent it, and share it, so that more and more people can, do this. And I know lots of people are now getting interested, which is so wonderful. People do call, people ask us, and we try to help as much as possible. At the outset, I must tell you, these cow dung log machines and pot machines are available now online everywhere. You just have to search your own area. They are, I think, virtually available in many, many parts of India now, unlike when we started. This is our beautiful Bijom team. It's all teamwork. It can never happen with one or few people, and all our animals. Without our animals, this also won't happen. So I'm really, I'm winding up my slide. This is our last slide. These are our socials. And in case you want to reach out to us, or you're welcome to mail us or speak with us, we'll try and help. So now I think I'm open to questions.
Namaste ji, thank you so much for sharing the story of Bejoom. Very, very touching and very inspiring work. We have one question. Due to lack of time, we'll maybe the participants are free to share their questions on the chat, ma'am, and you can respond. We'll also be sharing your contact details with them. How many cattle do you have? How many people are employed? And don't you sell milk at all is one question.
Yeah, so we don't sell milk at all. In fact, we hardly have milk on the farm. At the moment, if you walk into a farm, I think 2 cows are milking out of 150.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So unless you cross a cow, it's not going to have milk. You see? So our breeding is done very carefully. The reason why cows elsewhere have milk all the time is because they're constantly bred. You know, so we segregate the male and female cattle and keep them, and we only breed when they are rested, when they are healthy, when they are happy. It's really otherwise not fair to keep bringing in calves you can't look after into this world. So that's how we do it. We have, yes, we need people, we need staff, which is why, because this team needs money and we need, we need resources. That is why everything has to be entrepreneurial. Everything has to be a business. It's a business for a good cause. It's this, whatever we make is plowed back into the farm. I cannot say we are still 100% sustainable. We still put our own money, but we are getting there. Okay, so the idea is to be in the journey, at least. So it's not easy. It's a tough life because yes, there are no holidays when you're looking after animals. It's a 24/7 job. Fields and animals means you have no holiday. But that is what are the beauty of our countries. I could never do it without this team of people who never take a holiday, who are there with animals 24/7. And there's so much work around us because we are trying to do something khet se pet tak. And so yes, it's a lot of work. There are people, you need resources. We take in volunteers sometimes. So we work with many things, and that's how we manage.
Thank you, Aparna ji, for sharing your insights. And in fact, the whole idea of the cow conference was also to keep it very dung and cow urine centric, not at all even touching upon milk, because cows are just so much beyond milk. So in the narrative today, that's what we wanted to, not only today, over the 3 days, we've only had aspects to do with various other cow derivatives, so that even bulls have a role, that's the thing. And thank you. I hope more young people come across your work and get inspired. In fact, many people who attend our online courses also, we always share your video with them. It's very wonderfully documented on YouTube. I think some of them even visited your farm, GM.
Yes, maybe they did. We are planning to hold a series of online workshops because we've also had a problem in the pandemic having people over, and there was a lot of issues. So more online workshops, and we'll definitely announce them. And I'm really grateful for this platform. Thank you for hearing me and hearing our story. And you can individually write to us. We'd be happy to talk to you and share our journey with you and help you in any way we can. In the meantime, just start. I mean, people are worried about starting. Just start. I think it just rolls on. You don't realize how things move one to the other. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Reese. We hope to stay in touch, and best wishes for all your endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now we move on to the next presentation for today. We're very, very happy to have Ashwin Sampath Kumar ji from Dakshin Vrindavan joining us. Let me just take a minute to... Let me just take a moment to introduce Ashwin ji. After that, I'll hand it over to you, ji. Ashwin Sampath Kumar ji, born in an Orthodox Brahmin family in Kerala, has done his BA LLB and has graduated from LLM from Bangalore University and is a rank holder. He was working as the Director of Training in Cavalier, India for 3 years and is right now practicing as a lawyer in Bangalore. He is also a columnist in Krishna Voice Monthly magazine for the past 7 years. And he is the founder of Dakshin Vrindavan, a sanctuary for cows and bulls in Palakkad, India. Ashwinji, welcome. Namaste. Thank you for accepting our invitation and joining us, Ji. In fact, I'd definitely like to say that all of us at the organization follow your Instagram page, and we, every day get to look at all the cows that are rescued and the very, very cute captions along with each one of them. So we are big fans of your work, but phenomenal work in rescuing cows, and we're very, very much looking forward to listening to you. Over to you, Ji.
Unmute. Sir, may I request you to unmute you? Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Kaveri ji. At the outset, I'm extremely happy that I've been given an opportunity to speak with this august audience. Thank you so much for this. It was really an honor. So let me start with how we started Dakshin Vrindavan, the whole organization of Dakshin Vrindavan. So this actually started in the year 2013, when we actually, and during the Makara Sankranti, we have the habit of feeding cows and bulls. So in 2013 Makara Sankranti, I was 23 back then. So we don't have cows. So I hail from a family where, before independence, we had about 300, 400 cows actually. So after the land ceiling act was all brought in, we lost all of those cattle wealth. All right. So, and we had a couple of cows when I was born in my ancestral house. When that was gone, eventually when the nuclear family disappeared. So it was, we all wanted to get a connection with the cows. We all loved cows, just that we can't keep them in the house. So it was at this juncture that in 2013 that I had been to a dairy farm, a professionally run dairy farm, to feed the cows and bulls bananas, jaggeries, and some treats on account of Makara Sankranti. So I had been to a farm with a friend of mine. It's in the outskirts, it's in the border of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So when we were actually feeding the cows and bulls bananas, jaggery, and all that, so there was a small bull calf, about three and a half months old bull calf, jumping around and playing around. Beautiful, beautiful bull calf actually. So we were discussing about the cows, their nature, and we all loved it. We were hugging the cows, we were feeding the cows bananas and everything. And that's when the owner of the farm is not a small-time farmer, is a big entrepreneur. So the owner of the farm was negotiating the sale of the bull calf to a butcher. It was a surprise. It was a shocking moment for us. So we never realized that, we knew that cows were getting slaughtered in the country. As a matter of fact, Srimad Bhagavatam says that one of the first symptoms of Kali Yuga is that cows will get slaughtered. So Parikshit Maharaja saw that there was actually there was a butcher who was actually chopping off the legs of a cow. So this is the first symptom of Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, if you see that cows will be abused, that is one of the features of Kali Yuga actually. So we knew that cows were getting slaughtered, but I never imagined that small calves would actually get slaughtered. And that is when I realized that, especially in some belts of India, there is a huge demand for tender calf meat. It was a really shocking moment for us actually. So once the butcher left the place, I saw that in his dairy farm, there was a huge photograph of Lord Shiva with Parvati, and there's a mala which is put on the photograph, and there was lamps lit in front of it, clearly indicating the completion of a puja. So I asked the farmer, you're a devotee of Shiva? He said, yes. You are a devotee of Shiva and you're sending Nandi to slaughterhouse. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Well, he told me that, sir, I can't keep bulls because bulls don't give me anything in return. They are useless. That's what he told. These exact words he used to me. So I told him, that's fine, but how can you send the small calf to slaughter? He is Nandi, he is a vehicle of Shiva. You're a devotee of Shiva. And doesn't actually give you sort of a remorse of selling this particular calf to a butcher? He said that's a business and sentiments can't be mixed. And he said that I have no other option apart from selling this particular bull calf to a butcher. So it was a very shocking moment for me. So in a spur of a moment, I said, well, if you're actually giving this particular bull to a slaughterhouse, you're actually reserving a first-class ticket in the hell. So he said, so you're speaking so much of dharma, then why don't you take the bull calf and show me an example out of it? Back then, I was 23 years old. I hadn't even completed my law degree. I was in my final year of law degree. I was still a student. And I thought for a moment. I clearly remember asking myself a question. That is, am I ready to commit 20 years of my life to take care of this particular bull? because if I can't commit to it, I should not be accepting the responsibility. Well, something in me made me say yes. To this day, I have no idea what exactly made me say this, but something in me made me say yes, I'll take the bull calf. And I went to this particular place to feed the cows on Makar Sankranti day, and I came back home with the bull calf. So we arranged a vehicle, and we got the bull calf to a friend's house, and we kept the bull calf in their small farm. And that is how Dakshin Vrindavan started. Well, even then, I had no intention of expanding. So the whole idea was to pay up a small worker there, the caretaker of the farm, some money, so that he'll actually take care of the bull calf. And this is exactly when I had actually gone to a pilgrimage in the months of Ashada, exactly this month, basically, in the month of Ashada, in the famous temple of Srivilliputtur. Srivilliputtur is a famous temple of Andal. Andal is a consort of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So during the Ashada month, it is celebrated as her Jayanti, Adi Puram, Pura Nakshatra. So I had been to Srivilliputtur on a pilgrimage with a friend. We were traveling in a SUV, a Tavera basically. So we had halted in a particular place to eat tender coconut water. So near this particular tender coconut water, there was a small makeshift butcher's stable and a shop. And there were some calves tied up in this particular shop actually. Cows and one calf. So there was a huge sound coming. We could actually hear the cry of the calf, and it's quite disturbing cry. So we went there and I inspected, and that's when I saw a small calf there. So we really wanted to rescue the calf. So we thought, will we be able to transport it all the way from Madurai to Palakkad, which is near Coimbatore? It's a huge journey. But again, as we said, there's some divine power which actually made our team to take up the responsibility of the calf as well. So we created because calves of that age can never be slaughtered in Tamil Nadu according to the law. But he was clearly violating the law. But finally, we paid some money and we made some arrangements, and we took the calf. We were traveling in the Tavera, and we put up all our luggage in the backside, and we put the calf in the back seat of our car, and we brought her home. She still lives with us. Her name is Sita Lakshmi. And the first member, the bull calf which we rescued, I would say he is the founder of Dakshin Vrindavan, not me. I don't deserve to be called as a founder of Dakshin Vrindavan, because if not for that bull calf, Dakshin Vrindavan would not have been there. So that particular bull calf is called as Balram. He still lives with us. It's a huge, gigantic bull. Praganyadi, if you can please move to page number 6. I'm sorry, 6. So Balram, he still continues to live with us. And after that, I would say it was nonstop. It was nonstop. So we continued to rescue many, many cows from slaughterhouses, and we had no idea how to go about with things with. It is just that we all friends pooled in money, and we were feeding them, we were taking care of them, and we had no idea. I mean, until up to then, I never handled cows myself physically. So we never knew anything about cows, but the strong desire to save cows from slaughterhouses, that was there. So if you can see this particular the page, you can see the cattle have been loaded in jam-packed trucks. All right, and this is actually a regular sight in Tamil Nadu Kerala border. Every day, thousands and thousands of cows have been transported from other states to Kerala for slaughter. So this is a daily sight, and we all grew up seeing this at gruesome sight actually. So we want to do our bit, whatever we can to serve cows. For one thing, we know for sure that nothing pleases a Supreme Lord as much as serving cows. So if cows are served, he will definitely be pleased, because he says that he's everything around Krishna. You cannot imagine Krishna without cows. The very moment when we say Krishna, he's automatically is associated with cows. So we always strongly feel that the best way to serve Krishna is actually to serve cows. So over the years, we developed our own sort of constitution, our own next page, Prajanyaji, our own constitution, and our own way of functioning the Goshala. So what started in the year 2013 with the rescue of one bull calf in Balram is right now home to 300 cows and bulls. We have undergone a lot of difficulties in this journey, and it was never a smooth journey for us at all. But then I would like to share a few aspects, few realities of cow abuse that is actually happening in this country. Praganyadi, can you please turn to page number 7? Kaveri, yeah. So in the left-hand side top corner, you can see the cow's eyes with green color thing inserted there. So that is actually chilies. So I had just shared, I know this is actually quite a graphic picture, but we should know the reality, what mother cow, what the very embodiment of Kamadhenu is actually undergoing in this country. It's very important for us to realize the abuse of cows so that we'll be able to do a lot of things to her. We'll be able to serve her in a better way. So in this instance, we find that such instances of inserting chilies and tobacco into the eyes and the private parts of the cows is very rampant, because I've shared an image of the cows being jam-packed in a truck. So the whole idea of butchers is that they have to save space in the truck. And if the cows sit down in the truck, they will actually lose the space. So they always want the cows to be up in the standing position. And to enable this, they don't want the cows to sleep, basically. They don't want the cows to rest. So what they do is that they insert chilies and to the eyes and the private parts of the cows. So chilies doesn't cause much damage to the cows. I mean, of course, it's highly irritating. The point is that damage to the eyesight of the cows. But then the pesticides in the chilies that really causes damage to the eyesight of the cows. We have a couple of cows in Dakshin Vrindavan which have been rescued under similar circumstances, where they had inserted chilies to the eyes of the cows, and they had actually resulted in blindness, absolute blindness or partial blindness. So you can see the cows, shedding tears in the second image. That's because of the chilies being inserted to this. So the big question is that, as a practicing Hindu, as a devotee of Krishna, how can we sit quietly when the very embodiment of our dharma, cow literally translates to dharma, bulls literally translates to dharma. So how, if a dharma is undergoing abuse, how a Hindu, how a practicing Hindu can keep quiet? They cannot, let alone devotee of Krishna. Devotee of Krishna and Shiva, for that matter, they'll never be able to tolerate any sort of abuse towards cows. So when we saw this reality, we said that, listen, we have to do something about it. We have all small lives. So whatever we can, we will be doing something to the cows, whatever we can. So many people ask us a question, like, how many can you save? Will the world change if you start rescuing cows? This slaughterhouse, the slaughtering of cows, the abuse of cows, as you see in this picture, is never going to stop. Well, for them, I have just one answer. We are not laboring under the illusion that we'll be able to change the world. But one thing we can guarantee is that for the cows, for the 300 cows that we have served, at least right now, which we host in our place, for the cows, the world has changed. So for that, we are absolutely sure of. So we have seen that in this particular aspect, millions and millions of cows are getting abused. So of course, we can't stop the entire aspect of cow slaughter, but we always feel that every Hindu will be able to do their bit, their small bit, to save the cows and bulls from slaughterhouses. On this instance, I would like to share a few of the stories of Dakshin Vrindavan, the rescue stories of Dakshin Vrindavan. So one particular instance that we clearly remember is that a particular cow who had been hit by a vehicle in the highway was left to die in the roadside. Nobody was bothered to take care of the cow. There was no hospitals. I mean, there was no medical facilities, much medical facilities for the cows to be attended to. And the owner of the cow had completely abandoned her. So the cow was, someone contacted us and we approached the particular place and we took the cow to hospital. And sadly, the cow's legs has to be amputated. And she still, two of her legs had to be amputated, and she still lives with us. So Dakshin Vrindavan not just rescues cows and bulls from slaughterhouses, we also take in those cows and bulls who have been hit by vehicles and who have been abandoned by the farmers, etc. So, another most dangerous aspect for the cows is, Kaveri ji, page number 10, please. So the most important, another danger for the cows is actually plastic. So in the year 2016, we had rescued a cow by name Manjari from Bangalore. She was actually a street cow, abandoned and left in the streets. She was a street cow and we rescued her. She appeared to be quite healthy. She had this huge round stomach. So she appeared to be a very well-fed cow. And we brought her to Dakshin Vrindavan. We have little green patches here, but she wanted to eat, but she never was so keen in eating, and she barely drank a few cups of water. So we were a little worried, but we thought it's actually due to the journey, the long journey from Bangalore to Coimbatore, or maybe because of the change in environment or whatever. But after 3 days, we really got panicked. So we summoned the vet, and the vet had some inspection done in the stomach, and he said, the entire stomach of her is filled with plastic. You don't believe me, then vet suggested that we'll actually perform a surgery called as remanectomy. And we did perform a surgery called as remanectomy, and we extracted 43 kgs of plastic from her stomach. 43 kgs of plastic. So if we can't even take 1 gram of plastic to our body, actually, we can't digest 1 gram of plastic. And this poor thing was carrying 43 kgs of plastic. And who's responsible for this? Human. So I would, bluntly say that the biggest danger for cows is actually humans. Humans are the biggest danger for the cows. Gone are the days where cows were considered holy. Gone are the days where cows were actually a pride possession of the family. Even if you go to remote villages in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, so you will invariably find the portrait of a cow with the family. So cows were part of the family, and cows were considered a pride possession. She was actually the embodiment of wealth. She was embodiment of prosperity because she gave the fantastic thing called as cow dung. All right, and she was. I mean, every day the owner of the house would actually see the cows. First thing they see in the morning is the cows, actually. But those days are gone right now. The cows, wherever cows stood up, that place has been replaced by cars. So those days people were, they wanted to have lots and lots of cows, and they want to have, excellent cows, lots of cows, etc. But right now, people are interested in getting cars, So the holy, I would say, it's no longer holy cow, it's holy car, actually. So humans are responsible for this particular fate. What Manjari suffered for long, she was carrying about 43 kgs of plastic. Who was responsible for this? Humans are responsible for that. But the best part in this, that only humans will be able to do something to her. If there is someone who can actually help the cows, that's only humans right now. So Manjari lived with us for a long time. She passed away in the year 2020. She lived out about 4.5 years, even after the surgery. She had a very healthy life here. She had very good friends. Cows, I mean, off track, cows do have excellent friends, actually. So they have groups, they have excellent friends, they go about, and once separated, they refuse to eat. So they show fantastic social skills, actually. So Manjari lived with us for a long time after that, and she peacefully departed in the year 2020. So the whole aim of Dakshin Vrindavan is to rescue and shelter as many cows as possible from this fate that cows has to undergo because of humans. So that is with another aspect of Dakshin Vrindavan, the rescue of cows from slaughterhouses. Kaveri ji, can you please go to the next page? On the left-hand side, you can see the first resident. He is one I was speaking about. He is Balram. So the first image, the left-hand side top image, you can see the Balram when he came to us, literally ribs and bones. And later on, you can see his situation after a few weeks. And the last picture in the left-hand side page, you can see how Balram is there right now. It's much bigger right now, basically. And in the left-hand side, you can see Ashtalakshmi. So this is most of the cows who comes to us comes in such situations. So if you see Ashtalakshmi came to us from Madurai. She was left to feed because she went dry. Once she went dry, that's a typical thing. Most of the commercial dairy farms follow this principle of no milk, no home aspect, actually. This is the principle they follow. If they stop giving milk, they're completely shown door outside. They have to mend for themselves, or they are sold to slaughterhouses, or they are actually donated to the temple. In the pretext of donating to the temple, what they do is that they actually get rid of the burden. That's exactly what they do. That cow who have actually served her master all her lives by giving them milk, cow dung, love, affection, and whatnot. But once the moment she stops giving milk, she's actually shown door outside. And this is the first top picture. You can see Ashtalakshmi. This is how she came to us. If you see her picture, can you please zoom in the picture, Kaveri ji, the right-hand side top picture? If you can see the picture, you can see that literally she is ribs and bones. You can count her ribs. She's actually live X-ray, and she could barely stand up, for a few moments, and she would eventually collapse. And you can please scroll down, Kaveri ji. So, and after a few years of care, Ashlakshmi came to us in the year 2015, and this is a picture in the year 2019, 20. So this is how she is in 2020. So this is what we do. So, there is a sort of a deep internal satisfaction which accompanies cow protection. It's a deep internal satisfaction. So imagine the happiness that we would actually feel when we see such a extremely weak ribs and bones, just a bundle of ribs and bones packed in leather. That's how she came to us. And to see her happily living in the meadows of Dakshin Vrindavan, that does actually gives us extremely deep internal satisfaction, which can only be experienced when you interact with the cows. So next page, Kaveriji. So this is another example. You can see in the left-hand side, you can see Advait. So this is another typical feature that happens in commercial dairy farms. See, the moment I would always say with my friends that humans are perhaps the only species where birth of a male is celebrated. Okay. So when the male is born and the male heir is born, there's a huge celebration and everything. Apart from all that, in all other species, especially the ones domesticated by man, that's actually considered sort of a unwanted burden or something to that effect. So in the left-hand side top corner, you can see Advait, and Advait was born as a bull, of course, in a dairy farm near Coimbatore. And the moment he was born, he was barely attended to, and he was thrown out, and he had to actually be in the sun for a long time, and he had burns all over his body, and he came to us. That's the first picture you see above. He's barely about 2 or 3 weeks when we got him. And in the picture below, you can see him. We actually bottle fed him for a long time. You were feeding him plenty of milk, and he completely recovered. And the right-hand side, you can see Usha. Usha is another cow who came to us from Madurai. So as you can see in the picture, she was also just a bundle of ribs and bones. She was a live X-ray. And over the years, she happily accepted our seva of food, care, love, affection, and medical facilities. And she transferred herself to a beautiful cow, actually. So this is another aspect that we do. So we actually put a word that if there is any cow or a calf who would eat home, Dakshin Vrindavan would be most happily, they would accept the cow or a bull. So we find that in the belt of Coimbatore, Pollachi side in Tamil Nadu, there are plenty of farms, and it's a norm that the moment the particular offspring is actually a bull calf, he is actually sold to wheel market. Wheel market is a demonic trend which is happening in this country right now. So extremely sad to hear that in the land of Bharatvarsha, in the land of Maharaja Dilip, you all know the story of Maharaja Dilip. Maharaja Dilip, who comes in the line of Sri Ramachandra, he was ready to sacrifice his life for the sake of a cow, Nandini. And in this whole land where Parikshit Maharaja took out his sword to kill the butchers who chopped off the legs of a cow. Right? So in this land, there is a huge demand for veal. Veal is a tender calf meat. Veal would mean the flesh of a newborn cow, a newborn calf, actually. So there's a huge demand for it. There can't be nothing more demonic than eating. Of course, cow meat of any age or any standards for that matter, it is demonic. But looking at the pictures, looking at the innocent face of the cows, it is difficult for me to fathom and comprehend that someone could actually get them on their plate and eat them. But this is exactly what is happening in this country. In the land of Sri Krishna, it is difficult for us to sit back and say that it's all fate. We can't do that, actually. We can't afford to do that. So at this particular time, we decided that let's do something that will help us to get some mercy of the Lord. And over the years, we have come across lots of challenges. It will be surprising to know that for all these years, Dakshin Vrindavan never had their own land. So we never had our own land, actually. We just purchased a piece of land 2-3 months back. So obviously, there will be huge challenges. Whenever you are entering into Dharma Vishayas, there will be huge challenges. And we are clearly able to see the hands of Krishna in every step that we take in, every single step. Right now, the running expenses of Dakshin Vrindavan would come to approximately about 10 lakhs a month, 10 to 11 lakhs a month, which means about 1 to 1.2 crores approximately, apart from the emergency expenses, if any, but definitely 1.2 crores in a year. In the year 2030, that is 8 years back, if I had the slightest clue that I would incur an expenses of about 1.2 crores after 8 years, I would have never started this thing. We, Dakshin Vrindavan would have never started this aspect. So here we find the lotus hands of Krishna. He very carefully, he hid the cost aspect. He hid the fear aspect. We never thought that we will be actually wanting a land when we started Dakshin Vrindavan, and realized it's a huge investment. So we have no religion, in other words, sectarian or organizational sponsorship or backing as such. We were just a group of youngsters who wanted to do something to do something for the cows. So Krishna carefully hid the cost aspect here. We never knew the challenges that we would be incurring. Sometimes they say ignorance is sort of helpful. So we were ignorant of the realities. We never knew that we'll be incurring such cost. And of course, as the herd grows, we'll be incurring more cost. And we would say that we're extremely thankful for the huge mercy of Krishna. So if you see, there are two important qualities of the incarnations of the Lord, or the Krishna himself. The one and foremost thing is that compassion. It's extremely compassionate. So if you're taking one or two steps towards his seva, especially when it comes to cows, he'll take care of the rest of it. We are fully convinced about that. We have absolutely no doubt about it. The reason is that we as such, we ourselves, we people, we the team of Dakshin Vrindavan would never be able to run an organization like this. We'll never be able to run an organization like this, purely because of the costless mercy of the Lord, that we'll be able to do we'll be able to pay a small part, a small role in the mercy of Krishna by serving his cows and bulls. So he was very careful in hiding the cost part, but for some reason, we had difficulties. We had huge difficulties. There were days where we didn't have any funds to feed the cows for the next day. But for some reason, we have experienced that at that particular very moment, he would send help from someone. He always been extremely merciful. So, my proposal is that if someone wants to do something regarding cows, one should, as Aparnaji rightly said, we should not think about it. Let's just go ahead and do it. Just go with what your gut feeling says, actually. So we have to go ahead and we have to do whatever we can to serve the cows. So another aspect of Dakshin Vrindavan is that all the members of Dakshin Vrindavan, except for one of them, are otherwise full-time employed in other sectors. For example, I myself was working in a corporate company as a director of training. And then I'm into practicing right now. I'm also giving lectures. And three of our board members are from USA. They work in Microsoft, government of USA, and other companies in USA. And the rest of us are working here in India. Except for one retired person, as a retired general manager of DPL. Except for him, all others are otherwise fully employed. So we use our talents, we use our resources, we use our time, the free time that we get apart from work, to the use of the cows, for the serving cows in whatever little way we can. And there are few principles that we followed and which we evolved over a period of time. We never thought that we would actually do something, we will come up with some policies. So for example, I started Dakshin Vrindavan in 2013 with a friend of mine. We started initially and others joined later on. When I started in 2013, I never knew that cows were actually giving milk only when they were bred. I never knew that actually. So we learned all these things later on in later stages. But that's when we realized we took a very strong decisions that we will actually go ahead with some strict no breeding policy. Of course, when we have cows and when we have bulls, sometimes accidents do happen because we don't castrate bulls. Actually, we don't castrate bulls. So accidents will happen. Pregnancies would happen. The reason why we took this decision was that given the limited resources that we have in terms of land, in terms of money, in terms of the workforce, HRD, so it's difficult for us to expand. If it is not possible for us to afford to breed cows here. So among 300 residents that we have in Dakshin Vrindavan, 150 of them, approximately 150 of them are cows. And among 150 of them, about 100 of them are actually in a breedable age as such. Suppose we allow them to breed. The very next year, I would have 150 cows, which actually we created 150 cows in the Gaushala. So given an option, I would rather rescue 150 cows or bulls from slaughterhouses than increasing the mouths to feed inside the Gaushala. We really don't want to increase the feed inside the Goshala by breeding here. So we decided to follow a strict no breeding policy. And most importantly, we decided not to milk the cows. So the cows of Dakshin Vrindavan are never bred and they were never milked as well. So whenever there is, of course, we do get pregnant cows. The other day, there was a pregnant cow which we rescued in the month of February. She gave birth to a beautiful calf 2 days back. So when such instance happens, we never separate the mother and the calf. They always stay together. So, and we never milk the cows actually. So the entire milk of the cows that actually goes to the calves. So, and we see a beautiful aura when we enter into the Goshala of Dakshin Vrindavan. That is the mothers and the cows spending time together. They're never separated. And when they are together, there is a huge aura of love and affection, and which we can actually see there. There's a huge positivity there. So this is another feature of Dakshin Vrindavan, a principle of Dakshin Vrindavan that we follow. Another aspect is that when any cow or a bull gets admitted to Dakshin Vrindavan, we never send them outside. When a cow or a bull enters Dakshin Vrindavan, we make her a promise that, now listen, you have come here and we have given us a great opportunity to serve you. So we request her, we pray her, we give her a promise that she will never be sent outside. So over the years, we have been getting requests from temples also asking for cows, but we have been strictly sticking to this policy of no breeding, no milking, and no policy of sending them outside as such. They all will remain here in the premises of Dakshin Vrindavan as such. So we devised various plans and various schemes by which people can help us. Public in specific can come forward and they can participate in this great yajna called as cow protection. So one of the principles that we put up here was that adoption system. So I live in Bangalore and I really wanted to have a cow in my backyard, in the house Becky, but I stay in an apartment. It is not possible for me to have a cow here. So the whole concept of Dakshin Vrindavan is that the dharmiks who live in the cities can have their own cow, and the cow will be in Dakshin Vrindavan. So this is a whole concept of adoption. So we had devised some schemes by which people can come and they can have their own cow, but we'll keep the cow in our premises and we'll send them regular updates, photographs, videos of the cow. So this is one of the schemes that we introduced in Dakshin Vrindavan. And most importantly, we strongly believe in transparency. As Kaveri ji said, we put up all our updates in social media. So we are quite active in social media and we keep putting up all our updates there. So people can see like which cows are adopted by whom and what's their name, their progress, their health, the situation where, for example, Advait's, Usha's, Ashtalakshmi's, Balram, the condition they were brought in when they were admitted, and their condition right now over a few months, and so on and so forth. So over the years, we feel that we have actually, people will ask us, do you want me to actually, why do you want to do such thing in your young age? Because at the age of 23, when people chase behind their career, the family, and what's the ambitions of going abroad and everything, huge, people have huge ambitions. And there's nothing wrong in having ambitions actually. But someone asked me a question, can't you do all these things when you're somewhere settled in your life, say post 50 or 60 or something? So there's one question which came up to my mind. What is the guarantee that I would actually live up to 50 years of age? I don't have the next moment with me. That is not guaranteed. I just have this moment with me. And if I don't put that into use of dharma, if I don't put that into the service of Krishna, then that will be a disaster. And later on, I might regret. So as such, we just have this moment. So we just have to put best use of this moment for the service of the Supreme Lord. So over the years, no matter the kind of tensions that we had to undergo and what are the conditions, what are the trauma that we had to undergo, there is one thing that we can guarantee you is that there's an extremely deep internal satisfaction, which can never be explained as such, can only be felt, which accompanies cow protection. So with this, I would conclude my talk. And thank you so much for listening to me, agreeing to listen to me. It's indeed a great pleasure. And thank you so much for Crest and Anadi Foundation for organizing this wonderful symposium of august speakers. I am free to take questions. I'm sorry, it's not audible.
If you have a question, you can post it on the chat. We have shared Dakshin Vrindavan's website as well.
I'm so sorry. Please, my apologies. I'm not able to hear you. I'm not able to hear actually. Sorry, I think there's a problem with my line or the lines there.
Yeah, Ashwinji,
Yeah,
my
I'm able to
voice
hear
is
you right now.
going through.
Right.
Yeah, thank you very much. You have shared, you have touched our hearts, brought ears to our eyes. The seva being offered is an inspiration to one and all, sir. And we would like to spread this word, take inspiration from you and work towards Go Seva. Yes, sir. This is the only moment, and this moment is to be in service of Krishna. Oh, thank you very much, sir. We are lack of
Thank you so much.
time. And one question was, how did you manage finance? Is a question from the audience.
Excellent question. I'll sum up in a very simple way. The problem with many people is that they try to approach Mahalakshmi, that is the embodiment of wealth, without Krishna, without seva. All right. It is just like approaching Sita by Ravana. He didn't want Rama, he wanted only Sita. That's a problem. When seva bhav is there, when someone wants to serve them, and it should not be the other way also. It should not be like, what do you say? It should not be like Shurpanaka approaching Rama. It is impossible to approach the whole plan of approaching Mahalakshmi or approaching the Supreme Lord Sriman Narayana alone is disastrous. Actually, if you have seva bhava, seva is Sriman Narayana. If you have seva bhava, if you want to serve Kainkaryam, as we call up in Sanskrit, if you want to have Kainkaryam, then seva is must. If you want Mahalakshmi, then seva is must. When you do Kainkaryam, when you do service, every single resources will be supplied by him. It will be difficult, never an easy task, because it has to be difficult, because only when it is difficult, you get purified. And you want to be purified inside, you need to undergo struggles actually. And when you undergo struggles, the very cow is embodiment of wealth. She will supply, it's not, she won't, you don't have to take care of her. She'll take care of all of us. That's how it is actually. That's how it is. That's how the
Yes,
whole
yes,
concept
sir.
of Kainkaryam is. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. You have cut through the clutter and directly pointed us and placed us that the divine will take care. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. We would like to connect with you further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.